Okay, today we're going to talk about Hanamura. The whole map, we're going to talk about some things I recommend doing, some things I recommend watching out for, focusing largely on the defender's perspective, because they are typically the team trying to do something more specific. Attackers are usually a little bit more free in what they're trying to do. So let's start with checkpoint A. Now, conveniently, when defending all 2CP maps, except for maybe Volskaya, you don't usually have to worry about too much, because the attacking team typically doesn't get very many options. So the best team comp you can basically always go on a 2CP map is going to be a bunker comp. It's just the nature of the maps. You're turtling around the point, and the enemy can only really come at you from one way most of the time. So bunker comps are just a natural fit, and they are typically very strong right now anyway, but 2CP maps are really bunker comp centric. So with checkpoint A on Volskaya, there isn't a whole lot to worry about, because you get door 1, door 2. That's it. That's your flanking route, right there. You don't get much else that you have to worry about. So, the thing is with Volskaya, we're not on Volskaya, the thing with Hanamura is that people can usually not decide what they want to do, and usually the team has two different ideas about what they want to do, which leads to an issue. So usually the best thing you can do is just sort of sit over here, maybe a little bit closer to the choke point if you're feeling brave, and then the longer range heroes can sit more back here, and then they can see out the door, they can see all their teammates, but they're pretty safe because they're extremely far away from the points of entrance, and the enemy team is going to have to go through your whole team to get to you. So this is usually the best place to stand. It's where I'd recommend standing, like around this general line, depending on how close you want to be to the bad men at the time. Up here is also fine, because, hey, it's high ground, and if you're running a bunker comp, you're usually playing a bunch of heroes that don't need to be on top of the bad men. So you can sit up here and just sort of spam down at them, and then just make it so that they can't walk across this giant open space to get to your team. This is also fine. And it's slightly harder to get up to you here, because unless you've got vertical mobility, they can't actually get up here without going up the staircase, which is a cumbersome ordeal to have to go through. So this is also very safe. Now, where the issue comes in is usually the team ends up splitting in two, where you'll have some people stood over here, and you'll have some people stood over here. So the thing is, if you've got like 3 people over here, and 3 people over there, the bad men can just pick one group of your team, and just jump on them and kill them. And because that your team's just split down the middle like that, it can make it difficult for your team to be able to respond appropriately. Because if you got like 2 tanks and a healer over here, and then a healer and a DPS over here, it's possible that the bad men can just jump through here onto the teammates that have got no tank with them and clap them. Or they might just roll over the tanks down there instead, while the other teammates are up here like, well, I sure hope they fucking hold out down there by themselves, because I don't want to go down there right now. So it just makes it very easy to, like, collapse on one half of the team while they're isolated, basically. So you want your team to just all go to one spot, basically. It's not the end of the world if, like, you know, your soldier stood up here while your other mans are down there. Your soldier might get jumped on, but soldier can just, like, disengage from it. It's just when, like, your team is split up in two like that. Because it's kind of the same thing with, like, and if, like, a pincer attack's coming at you, you know what the best thing you can do in that kind of situation is? Pick one half of the pincer and just collapse on them immediately, because they're coming at you from 2 sides. So if you just pick one half, you go on that half with your full team. So you crush that half of the pincer, then crush the other half. It's the same concept, but you're the defending team. So that's usually where the issue comes in. You want your team to all agree on what they're doing together. You can also decide to just sit, like, real far back here. This is usually what happens after your team ends up giving a bit of ground on an earlier push, because it can be hard to, like, hold this position the entire round. So if you end up getting pushed back, usually your team will end up just sort of standing around the point itself at this point, which you don't really want to do unless you are going to make this space in here extremely hostile. So if you've got like a Symmetra May arrangement in here, then that might be okay. The thing is with standing all the way back here is it makes it very easy for the attacking team to take the easiest route to attack the point, which is through the building over here. Because what most people will do is just run straight at the point because, I mean, dude, you look through the door, and look, that's the point right there. Shit, dude, I gotta get to it. We'll get to this later when we cover attacking, but you don't want to do that. What you really want to do is go this way. So if you're just standing all the way back here, then they can just walk through there, like, no problem, because your team has conceded the entire rock garden, basically. So then the attacking team can just go through that way. So I don't like sitting all the way back here, just because you end up giving a lot of ground already, and, like, you can contest the choke point relatively easily. So I recommend this line, but up there is also fine, and some people prefer to stand down here, but that's what I recommend doing. So if you're playing a sniper, you've got this cool place to stand up here. It's a little exposed, but the enemy team have to expose themselves to you and your team to really shoot at you from up here, so it's not that bad. And, like, if you're playing, like, Widow and there's a Mercy, like, you can stand here, Mercy can stand back there, completely out of line of sight, and you can have a pretty good time up here. But you have to worry about getting sniped by the enemy team. Diving is not usually an issue that you're going to have to worry about, because the enemy team are going to have to kind of muscle past your teammates to actually jump on you, and you can always just jump down and then you're back with your teammates. So diving ends up not usually being much of a concern up here, unless they are, like, really gonna fucking dive you. It's usually worrying about other snipers, like a Hanzo poking through there, or a Widow poking through there and firing back at you. Maybe a Widow hookshotting over the top and shooting at you. Stuff like that's what's really gonna get you if you're standing back here as a sniper. Widow, Hanzo, Ashe, whichever, you know, you can stand back here, and that's all you really have to worry about. You can stand up here, and this is an extremely safe place to stand that gives you a very nice view of the entire rock garden. The problem is that it's not very aggressive as far as line of sight go, because you can't see outside the gate from here, so you can't really pressure the enemy team unless they're, like, right there, or they start pushing through the gate. But this is extremely safe. And a surprising number of people can actually get up here. It's not very aggressive. But if you feel very scared standing down in the rock garden for one reason or another, you're afraid you're going to get dove on, the enemy team are just kind of like deathball, what they're like pushing through with a Lucio really aggressively, stuff like that. You just feel unsafe down there. This is really safe, but you can't see the bad men outside the gate, so that can be a problem. And, you know, there isn't really a whole lot else to say about the point. You can stand over here as well, and this lets you see onto the point a little bit better as well, so this is also extremely safe, but very, very non-aggressive. Like, you can't even see the choke point up here anymore. You do also have to worry about getting flanked from up here, because you can't really see if people go through that doorway anymore, so someone might come up here and surprise you at the same time, but this is a pretty safe place to stand. If you're playing, like, Soldier or McCree, this is a pretty good place to ult from, because you can kind of see the whole rock garden, so if they're, like, fighting out there, they're like, oh, shit, dude. So that can be cool. You can if you're a longer range hero, you can stand back here as well, and this is also a safe place to stand. You can see mostly everywhere. Again, you can't see out the gate properly because that little bit of the roof is in the way, but very safe. Harder to get flanked here because you're further away from the point of entry. So another safe place to stand if you're scared, but again, not as aggressive because this is kind of in the way. If that wasn't in the way, this would be one of the sickest vantage points in the entire game. But sadly, it's in the way, so it has to only be pretty good instead. By the way, if there's a Sombra, she's going to be like over here, or she's going to be over here. These are pretty, or she might be in here, but they're usually a little bit scared to use that one. That's where the Sombras will be. So I have seen them, like, hang around back, not in orbit. I've seen them hang around back here sometimes, but it's a little far away, and it's not a big health kit. Sombra players love the big health kits, dude, so it's usually those over there, just so you know. But, yeah, you don't really have to worry about flanking, because there's no flank routes, really. The most you have to worry about is like someone jumping through there and then the bad man going around the backside and getting you. But like as long as you're paying attention to the whole, like you'll see them going, and if they go around that way, there's only one thing they're planning to do. So you can just send your McCree to stand right here and just wait, flashbang in hand, for him to come around the corner. And, you know, as long as you're paying attention, it's not going to be much of an issue. So you can do some funky stuff on this map with a Symmetra, because there are two classic tricks with Symmetra on this map that the attacking team will like to go with. One, the really straightforward one, is they just come to the main gate, and they put the teleporter, and they just teleport straight to the point, and just circumnavigate the rock garden issue entirely, and now you're just like standing here, and you're like, what? So you have to either break the teleporter extremely quickly, which will require focus from your team usually, or be ready to do a 180 really quick. Usually, the best way to actually deal with that is to kind of camp the entrance to the teleporter for a second, because they're not all going to go through the teleporter together unless they have, like, Overwatch League coordination. Someone is going to be slow to get through the teleporter. So if you just wait near the entrance they put down, most of the team will go through, and you'll see, like, the Zenyatta running up behind, and then you can clap that guy before he gets in the teleporter, and then you can rotate around and fight the rest of the team, now at a numbers disadvantage because you killed the stragglers coming through the end. Now, you might end up conceding, like, some percentage on the checkpoint to do this, but it will make the fight so much easier after that it might be worth it anyway. And usually once that plan has failed once, teams tend to not do it a second time. So it might be worth conceding, like, the first tick on the checkpoint just to guarantee that you get a really nice fight after you rotate, because they never go through all at once, dude. You're gonna catch a support or a DPS, at least one, you might get two, and then it's way easier to clean up the rest, dude. And then the second most common Symmetra tactic on this map is to teleport up into the window, and from there the enemy team might do one of two things, where they might jump up there and start fighting you from this high ground spot instead, or they might all rotate around the back of the point and start sieging the point from here instead, which is a very annoying thing for the bad men to do, and we don't really want them to do it, but there's not necessarily a lot we can do if they teleport up there, except, like, Orisa can halt and, like, really fuck up them moving as a group. We can just, like, spam a lot of damage up there and hopefully pick someone off as they, like, run through. Outside of, like, those situations, though, like, Roadhog hook somebody, you know, crowd control can fuck it up because you can split the team up, or just, like, dump a bunch of damage onto them. But if that doesn't happen, dude, we're gonna have to end up just rotating around and fighting them out like this, and, like, that kind of sucks, you know? Like, that's lame. We don't want to have to fight, like, this angle on the bad men particularly, but, you know, if they get through there all as one group, that's just what we're going to end up having to do, because there's no way, unless we're playing, like, a dive comp, there's no way we're going to catch them before they, like, rotate round, because we're not going to be a fast team if we aren't a dive comp, right? So we're going to have to hope we get somebody going through that way, just pressure the team enough they give up on it, or fight them like this. You know, that kind of sucks. At that point, we're just going to have to fight it out with them, basically. But those are your common Symmetra tactics. You can do that one with a Mei as well, but that one's harder to get going, so that's unlikely to happen with a Mei, but it can happen. I've seen it happen with Mei maybe twice, but it'll usually be a Symmetra. But just so you know, you can do it with a Mei instead of a Symmetra as well, because you can, like, ice wall out there, and it's a whole process. People don't do it, but they theoretically could, so just so you know. So that's kind of the first checkpoint. There's not a lot else to watch out for. If you are in, like, lower SRs, something that might happen that you have to be ready to respond to is, this will commonly be a soldier, but it could be anybody, theoretically, is a soldier might just sprint straight through this doorway up here, rotate around this way, and start shooting down at you. This will typically be what the Smurfs do. when they're playing against you, because they're like, they're not gonna get me, and I'm gonna be better than them, so I'll just sprint through and start fighting up here. So basically, like, ideally you don't let the bad man do that to begin with. Ideally he tries to do that, and he gets halted, hooked, flashbanged, walled, something happens to him, right? Ideally he never gets to get through here, but it might happen if you're in lower SRs, at which point, like, somebody's gotta get the guy down. Like, you can't let him stay up there. It's not even necessarily about killing him at that point, it's just about getting him off of that spot, because you can't just have a guy sat up there shooting down at you the entire time. Like, somebody's gotta get rid of the guy. And if nobody on your team wants to, it might have to be you. Even if you're a support, unfortunately, right? Like, you might have to just go and fight him as Moira or something, because you can't just let the guy sit up there shooting down at your team while you're also worrying about the team at the front gate as well, so someone has to deal with it. Ideally, you know, you've got somebody that can rotate up there quickly, or, like, yank him off, because, like, Orisa could hold the guy off, he could get hooked off, anything like that, right? McCree could just, like, shoot him, because there's not a lot of cover up there. Something has to happen, though. You can't let the guy sit up there, but that's something that can also happen. It is more of a low SR maneuver that the Smurfs like to do, but it's something you'll see quite frequently. It's usually Soldier, but it could be McCree. McCree could just roll through. It could be Ash. Like, anybody could do it, but it will commonly be the Soldier Smurf. But that's kind of the first checkpoint. There's not a lot else to worry about. That's basically what's going to happen. That's what I recommend doing. So let's go talk about checkpoint 2. So checkpoint 2 is in some ways easier to defend, in some ways harder to defend than the first checkpoint, because the attacking team actually has more options now in terms of how to get on the point. But the point itself is so much harder to stand on that it ends up, and none of the routes they have are particularly great. So in some ways it's easier, some ways it's harder. So I recommend your default position on the checkpoint is standing up here. If you just first lost the checkpoint, or like a fight happened on this point and now you're resetting, just come back up here. For the simple reason that if the bad men start coming through this doorway, you want to already be up here. You don't want to see them start going that way and then have to come up here. Like, you want to already be up here when they arrive so that you can make it difficult for them to walk through this doorway. And if you realize they start coming through that way, well, dude, you can just jump down to start fighting on the point if you have to. It is very easy to get down from the high ground if you need to, but it is very hard to get up to the high ground if you need to. So this is where your default position should be. You just lost the first checkpoint, a fight happened down there, you're resetting, just come stand up here, just in case they start coming this way. They frequently will, so it's good to do regardless, but even if it was unlikely, like, you still don't want to have to respond to them coming up here. You want to already be here. So this is, I find, the most common route that people will try to attack the point from. Here, we're basically just trying to use this whole thing as, like, a really long choke point, basically. Because if you got, like, an Orisa and maybe a Sigma sat up here and your team's just spamming down at them through the shields, this is an extremely oppressive room to walk through. And then you got, like, a Mei walling people, you know, you got, like, a Mei stood, like, right here walling people off as they come through. You chuck any AoE ultimate into this little corridor, it's gonna be fucking awful. Like, we're just trying to make this hallway as unappealing to walk through as possible, which is not hard, especially with the comps that are commonly run these days. You will be good at fighting in this location, probably by accident. Junkrat's really good in this area as well. Mei's good, Symmetra's good, like, Torbjorn's good. Zone denial heroes are good for making this particular area unpleasant to go through, as well as making the point unpleasant to stand on as well. So, usually this isn't much of an issue. Like, it's pretty easy to hold the bad men in this area, as long as nobody gets, like, too overzealous and starts, like, going to fight out here. We don't want to go fight out here. We want them to come to us. Like, why would we go out into this big, open, scary space? Like, Jesus Christ. Let's stay in here. Nice, warm, cozy hole. And we can just fuck them when they come into our warm, cozy hole. Right? That's the idea. Otherwise, they're going to come straight through the middle. Now, depending on our team comp, we might not have to actually jump down. Because if we're playing, like, Orisa Sigma, Orisa Roadhog, and then we've got, like, pick your combo of heroes that you can have behind the bunker, right? Like Bastion, Junkrat, Soldier, McCree, Ashe. It's possible we can apply enough pressure from up here that we can basically kill the bad men before they even reach the point, because that is a deceptively long journey for them to have to make down there. Because if you're down here and you have to do this while looking up at, like, a bunker comp, this feels awful, dude. Because, like, they're gonna break your barriers real fast, so ideally we kill or really damage them before they even get to the point, and then once they're whittled down, maybe we got some picks, whatever, we broke their barriers, we get a positive engagement, we can just jump down and start fighting the point on the point then, rather than having to jump down immediately. Because if we can just, like, shell the fuck out of them from up here first, it makes it way easier when we jump down, especially if we're playing a bunker comp where we're not really good at making, like, swift movements around the map, right? Ideally, we whittle them down first. If we know they're coming in advance, like somebody down, like, you know, if you're playing like Ana, you can stand, like, down here, and this is, like, really safe. You can still see all your teammates up there, as long as they don't start overextending. You might see the enemy team is just starting to come through this way, which is a little bit harder to tell from up there. And then you can maybe tell your team about that, and they can rotate around and start defending from here if you really want. But, like, I recommend, especially with a bunker comp, if you're playing, like a more deathball comp, or just dive comp or something, then whatever, you know, you're a little bit better at jumping down and just fighting on the point. But if you're playing a bunker comp, I recommend sitting up here and whittling them down first. Do worry about snipers, because there might be a sniper trying to get you from over there. Widows and Hanzos, even Ashes sometimes like to jump through that window over there and try to shoot at somebody. Because if your, like, team is looking over here, worrying about the bad men pushing up this way, then the Widow or Hanzo popping up that way might get, like, your backline unawares because you're focusing your attention over here, so watch out for that window particularly if you have a sniper. They might go all the way around there as well, so watch out for that as well, but it'll usually be that window. That's more where the flankers are going to come from. They might go down there as well if they're a little bit more scared, but it'll usually be this doorway the flankers come from, because, hey, look, there's a large health kit here. By the way, this is where Sombra will be, almost 100% of the time. The only other place the Sombra might be is down here. But they fucking love this health kit, dude. Anytime that there's a Sombra on the enemy team, dude, you could realistically just sit right here as McCree, and with almost certainty she will come to hack this health kit as soon as they capture point A. Like, it's that guaranteed. Don't actually sit and do that. But you could if you really wanted to fuck that Sombra. They love that health kit. So that's more or less all you have to worry about, really, because, like, the actual best way to attack this point would be for the enemy team to go through, jump down there, and start sieging from that area instead, because that's a way easier angle to approach from, but fucking no one's going to do that on ladder, so you don't really have to worry about that. They will mostly just try to brute force one of these 2 points, and neither is particularly pleasant. A nice insurance policy to have on this checkpoint is a big AoE ultimate, like Blizzard, Graviton, Gravitic Flux, anything like that, big AoE ultimates, because, dude, it fucking sucks trying to capture point 2. It's a big open square with no cover on it except those lanterns. It's awful. And if you throw a Blizzard onto that point, it takes up basically the whole point, and if they committed to a fight on that, they're not going to be too happy about that. So having ultimates like that is a really nice insurance policy for this checkpoint. Deadeye as well is a really good one. Anything that, like, big AoE threatening ultimate basically is great for this checkpoint. And, like, Deadeye up here, dude, you can see it all. You're relatively safe. The worst you have to worry about is getting crowd controlled or, like, hit by a sniper or something. Because if they're fighting on the point and you just come up around this way and start using Deadeye, like, they have to rotate real fast to kill you before you kill somebody, so the most you're going to have to worry about is the hook. But if you wait for that first, then it's going to be no issue. Like, they're unlikely to turn and kill you that quickly. If you're playing a sniper, you can stand up here. This is an extremely safe place to stand. It's not in a very aggressive line of sight because you can't see outside very well from up here, but it's very safe. The most you're going to have to worry about here is people coming through this window at you, because if they've got, like, a Genji, a Hanzo, another Widow, maybe, they might come through here to try and get you, and they're, like, pretty close to you if they're playing a diver, so that's the most you have to worry about up here, but outside of that, this is a very safe place to stand. It's just not very aggressive. This is also very safe, but also more aggressive, because you can see outside of the windows and door here as well, but this is less safe than over there, because now you're exposed to, like, a Widow standing there, or something, right, or a Hanzo standing there, or just, like, down there behind a barrier, right? So this is less safe, but more aggressive. Even Soldier can get up here with a helix jump, by the way, fun fact. It's just, you know, a little tedious, but even Soldier can actually do that. So yeah, that's about all that you have to really worry about. If you're playing a support, you can sit back here. This is very safe. Like, you're extremely far away from the bad men. They're going to have to either force their way through their whole team to get to you. Otherwise, like, if it's a flanker or a diver, you're going to see them coming way in advance. The most to worry about back here is a sniper, because they might see you through the door or one of the windows, right? So that's the most you have to worry about back here, but, like, Ana, Zen, you can stand back here. Well, Zen, you might want to be more closer up there because of Transcendence, but if you're playing Ana, you can sit all the way back here, and this is very safe. The thing is that if your team is going to play aggressively and, like, start pushing into that hallway, you're not going to be able to see them. So you are relying on your teammates not doing anything overly aggressive, which you might not always be able to depend on, but this is very safe to sit all the way back here. Over here also, you know, you're just near cover, you're very far away, you can dip into the spawn to heal if you really have to, right? It's very safe spot. And, yeah, that's basically the second checkpoint. There's not too much to worry about outside of what we mentioned, because, like, you know, a flanker could theoretically go through and under here, and, like a Genji could do something like this, right? And then come over here, jump up, Nano Blade, get the backline, but that's a maneuver that is not very commonly seen. It could theoretically happen because you wouldn't necessarily see him start going through that way, and he could surprise you, but you're not going to see that happen 99% of the time. It's mostly, like, people just do really boilerplate stuff here, where they push that door, and they push that door, and they just kind of hope it works, dude. So if you're playing, like, area denial heroes, or, like, heroes with big AoE ultimates, it will not be much of an issue for you to just, like, throw an ultimate at them as they come through those doorways, and they will be sad, basically. The main crux is, like, the thing is, again, with kind of like Checkpoint 2, is something similar to Checkpoint 1 can happen, where there's, like, 3 people up there, 2 people, like, a tank up there, a tank down here, a support back here, and, like, a DPS and a support up there. So then, like, they start going that way, and they're like, oh, fuck, the people down here are like, oh, fuck, I gotta get up here. And then by the time they get up here, 2 or 3 of the people that were up here died because a fight happened and they weren't in position. So, like, you know, you want your team all on the same page again. More so on this map because it can be harder to get to your teammates on here as opposed to the first checkpoint. So you just want everybody on the same page. Are we standing up here? Are we standing down there? Either way, like, we should all be standing in the same spot so that we don't just get collapsed on by the bad men. Because that's the easiest way to lose. The other most common thing is going to be overextending, because people love to come fight out here. They love to come fight out here. You never want to do it. Any 2CP map, but maps in general, but 2CP maps in particular, anywhere outside of the choke point is no man's land. You don't want to go out there unless you're playing divers or flankers. They're the only ones that can really justify it. Everybody else is so exposed going out there, it's not worth it. So that's basically defending. Let's talk about attacking now. So, tragically, attacking, we don't get too many options we can really do, sadly. So you have to worry about getting picked immediately upon coming out of the gate here, because snipers love to stand up there. People are just going to be over there spamming shit down at you, because this is relatively safe to do. I don't really recommend doing this, just because the risk of getting picked off, like, I've seen it lose games, so I don't recommend doing it, but people are going to be up here just already throwing shit at you. People are going to be up here throwing shit at you. Reinhardt might be waiting here to charge somebody, you know. Reapers love to hang out up here, wait to see if a Widow or a Hanzo comes up here, and then regardless of if that happens, like, they'll kill them or not, or nobody comes up here, and then they'll jump down and start killing the backline. So you have to worry about getting flanked here immediately upon the round starting. You have to worry about people throwing shit at you immediately on the round starting, so it's already kind of a nightmare. Honestly, I recommend going this way first, because this is a dramatically safer angle to approach from, right? It's kind of like, and like, not many people have really adapted to doing this. We've seen this thing with Volskaya, where people would always go left next to the water, outside of the attacking gate, but people realized it was way easy to die going that way. So now more people on Volskaya go through the middle or the right. Not many people really go this way at the start. It's so much safer, dude. And like, sometimes the bad men are just stood here, like, where are they? And then you come around the gate, and you get them before they've actually realized and rotated back in. So like, I actually recommend going this way, but not a lot of people like to go that way. Granted, this can be unpleasant if they're playing like a really spammy team, and you like don't get out of this hallway quickly, because then they start like throwing a lot of shit down this narrow channel at you, so that can be unpleasant, but it completely negates the risk of getting picked off like going up this way, which is so fucking common, dude. Like, you're gonna see so many people come out of the gate and just immediately a sniper fucking kills somebody as soon as you come out the gate. It's extremely common. So be prepared immediately for snipers and flankers. People love to sit up there and wait to see what happens. So if you're attacking, one of the easiest things to do attacking this checkpoint is just circumnavigate the choke point, which is basically going to be done through Symmetra, doing one of the two strategies we had previously demonstrated. This is like the easiest one to do, especially coordination wise, but like if not everybody's on the same page or they break the teleporter really quickly, you can end up getting stuck like with your team split apart, so that can be scary, but like that can make it so much easier than doing all of that. If you're gonna come up through here, like this is honestly like pretty easy to do, but you know, you gotta get your team to agree to come up here, right? Like you can't have like 3 people come up here, everybody has to come up here. And then the best thing to do is go around this way and start sieging from here, because this is such a good angle to attack from, but you know, you gotta get your team to go along with you with that one, but like that's one of the easier ways to attack this point, to be honest with you, dude, is just use Symmetra to bypass the choke point, because this is one of the most obnoxious choke points in the entire game. Because, like, it's so hard to get through this doorway, like, especially if they have, like, a really fucking turtley team. Like, if they're running most variations of a bunker, getting through this choke point is a fucking nightmare, because there's just so much shit flying at you as you're trying to push through. Most tanks, like, really struggle to do it. It's usually, like, pretty good to run a dive comp on point A, just so that you can avoid playing around this choke point, because it's so hard to get through this choke point with, like, a regular team comp versus most comps you're going to see today, because bunkers are so popular. It makes it so hard to get through. It's a lot easier to just avoid the issue. So, if you're playing a longer range hero, one of the best things you can do is come and stand up here and start attacking from up here instead. Now the thing is, there's no health kit up here, so this is kind of annoying if you're not playing soldier, because you're going to end up getting some damage put on you, at which point like you're going to have to go over here to get a healer to help you, or like go down to regroup with the team. If you're playing like soldier, this is easy to do stuff from, but it might be annoying if you don't have a healer that like comes up with you, basically. But like, it's just easier to do stuff as a longer range hero from up here, and this is like all longer range heroes. The problem is that someone like McCree can't really get up here easily, because it's a really long way to get to the staircase, but Soldier can get up here relatively quickly through sprint, and once he's up here, he gets to stay here, like, pretty definitely, because of Biotic Field. And Hanzo, Widow, Ashe, they can all jump up here, so that's nice. It's easier to do stuff from up here as opposed to down here, right? Like, it's not as good of an angle. Now, the thing is that your 300% move speed Genji is scary. The thing is with being up here is that you are obviously very vulnerable and exposed up here to other snipers and long-range DPS, so that's scary, but you're less exposed to the team in general, like you get to stand in a better angle, so this is a nice place to stand if you're a longer range hero. You can stand over here as well, and this is obviously more reserved but less aggressive, and you can fight people that get up there a little bit more easily as well, so this is a nice place to stand as a longer range hero, but you will have to rotate relatively quickly if your team starts pushing in, so you've got to be ready to do that, but this is a safe place to stand as a longer range hero. Again, like, easier than, like, right here, which is where you'd be on the ground, so that's, you know, like, this whole area is kind of scary to be as a longer range hero. So, suppose we aren't going to circumnavigate the point. Suppose we got to just push through the choke point, right? Like, oh god, how terrible. But, so there's like 3 things that we can do when we come through here, right? And the obvious one is just go straight to the point. Now, this is not what I recommend doing, right? Unless you get like a really good engage on the enemy team, or like you get some picks, in which case you obviously want to just like rush to the point as fast as you can. But if we're just like pushing through the gate, we don't get any picks, we don't get like a sick engagement or anything, just pushing through the center is extremely difficult to do, because you're going through this big open space with no cover on it, and dude, you can be threatened from literally everywhere around you. Like, you're standing in here, and doesn't everything just look so big and scary around you, right? Like, bad men up there, bad men over there, bad men up over there. Like, you can be getting threatened from everywhere. And if you're playing, like, a death ball comp, like, or a bunker comp, and you're just pushing through, like, you're not going up there to contest any of these people, right? Like, you're just trying to get on the point. And you're gonna be getting damaged from, like, God only knows where. Probably a bunch of different places at once. Like, this is extremely difficult to do, unless you get picks or an advantageous fight, like you get some big ults in there or something. Like, okay, then it's not so bad, but if things are relatively neutral or even, then pushing through the center, extremely difficult. Don't recommend doing it. So the best thing to do, but the hardest thing to get your teammates to do, is going to be go this way, because attacking from up here is really nice. Like, this is a very good angle to attack from, because you've got high ground advantage. They have to be either using the bell or a shield as cover, or be standing really far back off the point, right? So then they're more spread out, which will make it easier to get a fight on. This is just a good angle to poke and prod at them from, and there's like health kits nearby all around us that we can use if we really need to as well. So like, this is a really nice angle to attack from. You can get people up here as well, and then hey, this is even better, right? Like, so this is a great angle to begin an attack from, but it is hard to get your teammates to make that movement. So that's unlikely to happen, but it is the best. The most frequently best option, though, will be go this way instead, because it's just easier to get your teammates to do this, basically, and that's a big thing, because if you don't get your whole team to do that, that angle's not as good. It's way easier to get your team to agree to do this. And this is fine. Like, this is also fine. Like, it's not as good as that, but it's still fine. Like, it's way better than going through the center still. So you got 2 ways you can do this, and, you know, going up through here, you get to use the high ground, but people aren't going to follow you up here. You'll maybe, like, more likely is you'll come through this way, and if you've got a long-range DPS, they'll break off and go this way instead to stand up here, which is fine to do as well. This is a nice place to stand. There's health kits nearby that they can use if they have to as well. If they're soldier, they don't care, and this is just, like, a good angle to siege from, so, like, that's fine to do. But most of your team is going to come this way, and this is also fine. Like, it's easier to attack like this than like this, while also having to push through this as well. Like, so especially if they've got like a really like barrier breaky team, right? You've got to put the barrier up for like half a second. Your whole team comes through here. Even easier if you've got a Lucio to speed boost you through, right? Then you can sit in here, regenerate any shields that you have to, wait for cooldowns, and then come around here. They'll probably on the point fighting you, maybe pushing up onto you, in which case you just fight them from here. But if they're back there, you know, you come over here, hey, we're in cover again, rotate round, and now we get to fight from this angle. It's way easier to do than pushing through the center. So that's the route I really recommend, but it's hard to get your teammates to do it. Otherwise, do this. Only go through the center if you have a really advantageous fight. Like, you have gotten a pick or 2, you've got a lot of ultimates you're ready to just throw on the bad men, what have you. You're playing a dive comp, maybe, you don't care, you're just gonna rush straight at the back line. Fair enough. But if things are even, and you're playing a death ball or a bunker comp, do not push through the center unless you get a real sick fight. That's the important thing. That's a bait. That's such a bait to go straight through the center. So that's basically point A. You don't get many other options. You know, you can come and maybe stand up here as a long-range DPS, but, like, people are pretty good at, like, just seeing one guy come up here and just throwing a bunch of shit at you suddenly, so, especially if they've got, like, any kind of long-range DPS over here, this is really scary to do this, so you can do it, but be careful doing it, it's, like, really scary. But sometimes, you know, you get to hop around here, and they're not really playing long-range people, and they're all kind of clustered around here, so Hanzo gets to just go tink-tink and get a couple picks. That's great, you know, stuff like that can happen, but it's kind of rare. You can come and stand up here as well on these, and, you know, this is also scary, but sometimes surprises people. You get to do some cool stuff on this map as Pharah if you're attacking. This is not the correct spawn. I can't change in there. Oh, Jesus Christ. It's fine. We'll just change to Pharah real fast. A more professional man would cut this section out of the video, but that doesn't sound a lot like me, dude. So we're gonna walk around. You can probably already get the idea of what you can do with Pharah on this map if you know, like, how to play Pharah, but we'll show just for demonstration's sake, because there's a lot of stuff we can do in the air, right? So we can obviously, like, do this as Pharah, and, you know, that's cool. We can come up here, get a little bit of a poke through here, we can come up around here, we can, like, hop up and get some shots through there, you know, that's all very nice to do. We can, like, just poke around the top up here. There's lots of places we can vary our angle from, basically, and there's a lot of cover up there we can use in the air, and, like, if they're all hovered around the choke point, we can give them one of those, right? Like, something like that, and that'll clear out some of the bad men. Stuff like that, so you can do some cool stuff with Pharah on this checkpoint. She's not very good on the second checkpoint, because that space is a little too confined from her, and there isn't as much, like, vertical cover she can use, but, you know, she can do all that. If you can get through the gate, you can start, like, playing around, like, this rooftop over here now, so this is very nice to do as Pharah. You know, you can come around, give them a little poke prod from here if you can actually get in. If you got a Mercy with you, then, you know, you can have some real fun back here, bullying the bad men around, but, you know, that's obviously going to be dependent on what your team's doing, but bare minimum, you can play around a lot of different spots on the gate to vary up your angle from, so it's nice as far. You can do some cool stuff on here as far. But that's what I recommend doing. That's basically checkpoint A. So checkpoint B, the best thing you can do, your team, good luck getting your team to do this, but the best thing you can actually do on this checkpoint is come through this gate, jump down here, come around here, and start attacking through this angle. Because it's so much easier to come through this angle. You can play the poke prod game with the bad men up there if you have to, you know? Like, this is a fine angle to do that from, because they haven't got a lot of cover up there. You got a health kit right here. It's no problem, you got a lot of cover to work with. And if there's any bad men here, like supports long-range DPS hanging back here, maybe a Bastion back here, you can get on them, like, real fast, right? You come around here, you're at them. So that's nice. It's just a really nice angle to attack from. You can wait for a good engagement. If they're going to respond, if they're, like, going to rotate to match you, they have to come stand there, which is way less good for them. They don't want to be stood, like, right fucking here, contesting you, right? So that's unfortunate for them. Otherwise, they're going to stand up there and poke and prod at you. But, like, you can just, like, march forward, stand on the point from here, and it's, like, easier to get to the point from that angle. And you can just stand here and look up at them and go, well, now what? We're touching the point, and they're going to have to jump down to fight you, right? And your long-range DPS, they get to stay back here and fight from this angle perfectly fine. You know, your supports, they get to stand back here and from this great angle for them. It's way easier to attack from here. If you can come around here and, like, get any people that are stood up here ahead of time as well. So that's nice to do, but good luck getting your teams to do that, unless you are playing with a large pre-made or in some kind of organized setting. It's not going to happen otherwise. So, neither main option is particularly good. Like, coming through here is scary because you're going to be looking up at bad men over there, and coming through here is also scary because you've got to do this run. So the best way to kind of make this easier is do something that's going to, like, draw attention away from those areas at the same time, which basically means you want a flanker or maybe a long-range DPS that can kind of poke and prod at them. Because if there's somebody over here, like a flanker, a sniper, whatever, kind of poking and prodding at them over here, it's kind of like drawing attention away from the main area that you're going to come from. And as long as the person doing this doesn't get caught doing something ridiculous, then it's fine, and you're making it easier for the rest of the team to come through. You know, flanker back here, poking and prodding from back here, comes around the side, you know, any supports back here, you know, just kind of like drawing attention away from those locations, because it is extremely hard to push through those areas as the attacking team. The easier way is usually going to be straight through the middle, mostly because of the way team comps usually are right now, which is you're usually going to be pushing into a bunker comp, and that's usually going to have, like, Symmetras, Torbjorns, Mays, Junkrats, Bastions, you know, unpleasant things, which make it very hard to push through confined locations like this, right? Any zone denial hero is going to make it extremely hard to push through here, and, like, bare minimum, like, Orisa and Sigma might be over here, Orisa Roadhog might be over here. Like, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to go through this doorway. The best way to do this is gonna be throw your own AoE ultimates in here. Like, you come through, and Mei just fucking throws her Blizzard down right here, or comes around the backside and tosses the Blizzard up there, right? Like, then they have to, like, get caught up there or jump down, at which point you've gotten control of this area. So, the benefit to going this way first, if you do decide to try and take this angle, because there's positives to doing this, is you now have control of the high ground. So now your team gets to sit up here and shoot down at the defending team and wait for a positive engagement, right? Because now, you know, we talked about that being hard to do for the attacking team. If we get control of this high ground, we get to force the defending team to do that. So now we can do that where we sit and we poke and we prod and we pressure, and then when we get the good engagement, we have our AoE ultimates ready, we get to hop down and start fighting them with the positive engagement, right? So we can force the defending team into the position we would otherwise be in as the attacking team, which is nice. The problem is that you have to actually be able to do that, which can be very difficult depending on the team comp you're playing against. Now, if you're playing against, like, Double Sniper, this is fairly easy to do, right? Because they aren't really putting that much pressure into this area, right? Like, the worst is, like, maybe getting picked coming through here, right? Then you get up here and you start fighting. So it's not that bad depending on the team comp. Then you can kind of reap the benefit without a lot of the negative attached to it. But if you're playing against, like, Junkrat Mei with Orisa fucking Roadhog, like, this is nightmarish to try and push through, and it might just be completely untenable for you. So otherwise, like, this is going to be the best way, basically. Now, then, you know, you've got to worry about that situation up there. And, you know, you don't really get a great option, unfortunately, pushing through this way, other than just, like, get on the point really quickly, don't take a bunch of damage doing this, and make them jump down to start fighting you, because you're capturing the point, so they do have to jump down to contest you if they aren't going to kill you. The thing is that you've had to do a very exposed run to get to this position to begin with, so you might be fucked up when you get here. So the easiest way to make this easier to do is going to be, like, play a dive comp so you can shorten the time it's going to take you to get here, or, like, have a Lucio on your team to get your team here faster, and have, like, a lot of shields on your team. Like, you could go, like, Orisa Sigma, and that's a lot of shields. You could go, like, Rein Orisa, Rein Sigma, whatever, right? Like, you can have a lot of shields, and that can make this easier. Because, like, then, like, Rein can cover you as you're coming in or something, then you get here, and you got the Orisa Sigma that can put the shield down when you arrive. Ryan's regenerating his shield now. You got here a lot healthier, hopefully even with a Lucio to help you, and then you get here a lot healthier. They have to jump down on you a lot sooner while you're in a better position to fight them, right? Especially if they're playing a bunker comp. Bunker comps aren't great at rotating like that. So if you get onto the point in, like, a reasonably good condition, you're all healthy, you've got some ultimates ready, and they have to jump down to fight you immediately, that's unfortunate for them. Then the worst part is, like, some of them jump down, but then, like, McCree, Hanzo, what have you, stays up there and starts contesting you from the high ground while you're fighting on the point. Then you're going to need to do something about the guy on the high ground, or dominate the point so that the guy on the high ground doesn't matter. So, you know, you can have somebody that can contest the high ground, a diver, a flanker, what have you, can get up there. Maybe you send one guy around there to try and, like, pressure them once you get the rest of them to jump down if you're a little bit more coordinated, whatever. So having somebody that can contest high ground is good. Otherwise, you want to just dominate the point, right? Like, you want to have a team that can, like, brawl it out down here. So, like, fucking, say, like, Hammond, Diva, Reaper, Mei, Bridget, something like that, right? Something they just, like, scrap it out on the point and hopefully dominate the space enough, chuck some ultimates down here, you know? Dominate the space enough that, like, you can win the fight down here decidingly enough that the guy on the high ground, it doesn't even matter because you've just won this fight so, like, convincingly. Otherwise, like, you're gonna need to worry about the high ground at the same time. It's really hard to fight down here while somebody's just shooting at you from over there. So you will need to do something about that if somebody stays up there. But they might be like Junkrat May or something. Nobody might be up there. They might just all jump down to start fighting you instead, in which case, hey, now you're just fighting it out down here. And if you got here healthy, maybe through some of the methods we mentioned earlier, you get here healthy, you've got ultimates, you know, them chucking a blizzard onto this point sucks for us as the attacking team, but it sucks just as much for them as the defending team, right? Like, if we chuck a blizzard down here while they're defending on the checkpoint, then it's just as unpleasant for them as well. It's just like, we have to worry about them doing the same thing to us, but it's just as bad for them. So if we've got something, you know, if we've got an ult advantage, if we engage, they throw the ult down, we disengage, then we re-engage once it's gone, you know, we have Transcendence, so it doesn't matter if we get caught in one of those big ultimates, then we counter-engage with our big ultimates, stuff like that's going to make it easier. And that's the thing with these 2CP points, 2CP maps, really, is that, you know, getting to the point is not necessarily the hardest part, it's getting a convincing fight once you arrive. Because you can't just sort of win the fight on these checkpoints. You have to fucking win the fights on these checkpoints, because otherwise they're going to switch to all the stalling heroes and it's going to be a nightmare, and they're going to drag it out for maybe minutes, and eventually you're going to lose steam and they're going to push you off. So you need a convincing fight on these checkpoints to actually capture them. And the easiest way to do that is always going to have big AoE ultimates like Blizzard, Graviton, Earthshatter, Gravitic Flux, Riptire, anything, Deadeye, whatever. Like, big AoE ultimates are always going to be the things that make these checkpoints easier to capture, because they're the most surefire way of wiping the enemy team, which is what you usually have to do to capture the second point on a 2CP map, because they have such a dramatic spawn advantage on you, that if you end up having to fight it out here for an extended period of time, you are going to spend, like, if you're not a hero mobility, it takes you like 20 seconds to walk back, whereas it's like 4 seconds for them. So if it turns into an extended fight, you are not favored as the attacking team. You have to win the fight, and the ultimates are going to be the easiest way to do that. It's going to be harder to do that ever since with the ult charge nerf that just went through, but that's always going to be the easiest way to capture these checkpoints, is like, get to the point in like reasonably good condition and then throw ultimates at the enemy team and hopefully kill them all so that they can't stall you. And, you know, sometimes that's really hard to do, especially depending on your team comp. Like, you might not have a team comp that's really capable of doing that. Because if you have a team that's got, like, not great ultimates, like, if you have, like, Symmetra Reaper, just for argument's sake, you don't have necessarily those big ultimates that are going to wipe the team. Death Blossom might, but it's one of the more easily countered ultimates as far as that goes, so you might not be in a position where you can reasonably get those kinds of, like, big team wipe fights, in which case it's going to be about just getting a really good engage and then kind of brawling it out on the point, but those kinds of engagements just naturally favor the defenders on 2CP maps, unfortunately. But that's kind of all I've got for you for attacking this point, to be honest with you. You don't get many other options. One of the easiest things to do is get control of the high ground and then just, like, wait until you can pick a good fight to jump down, because if you are up here doing this, or, like, over here doing this, like, you can take all the time you need, right? Like, as the attacking team, you're the team with the initiative. You decide when the fights happen. So you can sit up here and pick and prod at the defending team until you get a good engagement. The problem is you need to be in a position where you can get control of the high ground and then have a team that benefits from having control of that high ground, which one or both of those things might not really be possible for you, in which case it resorts to basically just brawling it out up there or down here, and brawling it out is hard to do without ultimates. It's going to rely a lot on your team just being mechanically better than the enemy team, which is going to be really hit or miss. Ultimates are always going to be the easiest ways to mitigate those brawling situations, because it doesn't matter what kind of situation you're running into, dude. Like, it doesn't matter how hard to break that choke point is. If you throw 6 ultimates at that choke point, you are going to break the choke point. It's just about getting the ultimates, using the ultimates together, and getting the right engage. That's the hard part. Nothing in this game can't be toppled with 6 ultimates. Just getting there and having decent ultimates to use. So that's kind of all I've got for you for attacking Hanamura. It's really hard. Those are like your best options available to you, dude. So good luck, basically. You know, be ready for a lot of games on this map to not see a second round. Like, you are going to play a lot of games on Hanamura that are decided on this checkpoint or the checkpoint. It's very rare that both teams are going to capture 2 checkpoints. It's quite rare for one team to capture both checkpoints. Usually it's going to go 1 and then like 78% or something like that. It's so hard to capture the second checkpoint on a lot of these 2CP maps. Hanamura in particular, quite easy to stall out. So be ready for, like, don't get too mad if you end up not capturing the second checkpoint. That's pretty standard for 2CP maps, to not capture the second checkpoint. It just gets really disheartening when you bash your head against the same choke point and capture point for like 5 minutes, because usually the first checkpoint falls quite quickly, and then you grind against the next one for like 5 minutes, and that gets really disheartening because it's 5 minutes of just failed pushes, right? So it gets very disheartening. Try not to let it get you down too much. That's very common on 2CP maps. Don't worry about it. Like, if you get 1 and then like 70%, that's great. Like, that's already better than a lot of teams are gonna do, because a lot of teams will get 1 and then 0 on the second checkpoint. So just consider getting any ticks on the second checkpoint as a win, frankly. You get to 34%, consider that a great success for most 2CP maps. Volskaya may be a little bit more real, maybe you can dream a little bit more on that map, but other 2CP maps, dude, have really reasonable expectations. Especially in lower SRs. It's really hard to capture these points. As like, lower SRs, the defending team has the advantage over the attacking team, and then as you climb higher and higher, it slants more the other way. But low SRs, dude, be reasonable. A lot of teams are not going to capture the second checkpoint, and that goes for both teams, your team and their team. So just be realistic with your expectations. So that's Hanamura for you, basically. So thank you very much for watching if you did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you could join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us. I've started streaming on Twitch Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 8 p.m. EST till midnight EST. There's a link to the channel in the description. And if you managed to make it all the way through the video and somehow still enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middling quality in the future. And I hope you found the video helpful.